Hey, my friend. Welcome back to Strategic Recovery. I'm Matt Finch, and today's episode is one of the most important conversations we'll ever have. Because if you've ever sat alone, wondering, why do I keep ending up back here? Why can't I stay consistent? Why do I relapse even when I'm doing everything right? Is something just wrong with me? Then first, let me speak directly to your heart. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are not a lost cause. You are not alone. And you are not the problem. Most of what you've been taught about addiction and recovery was created with good intentions, but built on incomplete maps. Maps that ignore your biology. Maps that minimize your trauma. Maps that ask you to push harder, try harder, be better, without ever healing the systems inside you that are crying out for restoration. Here's what I want you to know. If you've ever tried therapy, or 12 steps, or meetings, or supplements, or books, or apps, or cold turkey, or white-knuckling your way through cravings, and still found yourself back at square one, it's not because you're not trying hard enough. It's not because you're not serious about healing. And it's certainly not because you're weak. It's because most of those tools were never designed to heal the full human you. The physical you, the emotional you, the relational you, the spiritual you. You've been given puzzle pieces, but never the whole picture. And if you're tired of feeling like you're stuck in a cycle, hopeful one week, hopeless the next, I want you to hear me. It's not your fault. You've just been following a blueprint that was never meant to bring you all the way home. So today, we're going deeper. We're pulling back the curtain on why you relapse, even when you're doing everything right. We'll explore the hidden layers most recovery models miss, the ones rooted in your nervous system, your brain chemistry, your trauma story, and your soul's longing to be whole again. We'll talk about what actually causes relapse and what to do when you feel stuck, ashamed, or ready to give up. And most importantly, we'll begin building a new blueprint, one rooted in love, wisdom, strategy, science, and the sacred. Because this isn't just about quitting something. It's about becoming someone. It's about remembering who you are underneath the pain. So take a breath. Place a hand on your heart. And remember, this moment, right here, right now, could be the beginning of everything new. Let's go. Section 1. The Willpower Trap. Let's begin by dismantling one of the most dangerous and persistent myths in recovery. A myth so baked into our culture, our language, and our self-talk that we often don't even notice it. The willpower trap. You've probably heard it 100 different ways. I know I sure have. You just have to want it badly enough. You're not serious this time. You've got to dig deeper. No excuses, just discipline. But here's the truth. You don't relapse because you lack willpower. You relapse because you lack what willpower can't provide. As Dr. Gabor Mate says, the question is not why the addiction, but why the pain. And willpower, no matter how strong, cannot heal pain. It doesn't regulate your nervous system, rebalance your neurotransmitters, rebuild your hormones, reconnect you with your inner child, or remove the thorn of trauma lodged deep in your psyche. Willpower is like trying to hold back a tidal wave with your bare hands. It works until it doesn't. Because when your body is starved of dopamine, when your brain is wired for survival, not serenity, when your nervous system is in a constant state of hypervigilance, and when your soul is silently screaming for purpose, peace, and permission to rest, no amount of grit will save you. You're not weak, you're wounded, and wounds don't need willpower. They need healing. You cannot heal what you do not understand. Carl Jung. And that's where most recovery models miss the mark. They ask people to lift a mountain with no foundation, to run a marathon on a broken leg, to fight a biochemical storm with motivational quotes and shame-based pep talks. Imagine telling someone at the ICU with a collapsed lung, just breathe harder. That's what most people in early recovery are told by systems, by peers, and worst of all, by themselves. But your nervous system isn't malfunctioning. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do, keep you alive. As Bessel van der Kolk wrote, the body keeps the score. And your body has been keeping score for years, maybe decades. If you ever said to yourself, I just didn't try hard enough, maybe I don't really want to change, I guess I'm not cut out for recovery, I want you to hear this. That voice isn't your truth, it's your shame. And shame is not a motivator, it's a suppressor of healing. As Brene Brown reminds us, shame corrodes the very part of us that believes we are capable of change. The reality is, you've been surviving. You've been carrying more than people can see. And when your inner resources are drained, what looks like lack of discipline is really just exhaustion. Biological exhaustion, emotional exhaustion, spiritual exhaustion. This is why people relapse, not because they're flawed, but because the foundation isn't there yet. It's not a matter of will, it's a matter of what's missing beneath the will. And this is where we begin. Not with shame, not with force, not with digging deeper, but with understanding. Understanding that recovery is not a battle of willpower. It's a process of rebuilding capacity. It's healing your nervous system. It's nourishing your brain. It's giving your body permission to rest, regulate, and repair. It's bringing love to the places inside you that learn to cope in painful ways. As the Buddha said, with our thoughts we make the world, but first we must rest the mind that thinks. So take a breath, my friend. If you've felt weak, if you've blamed yourself for relapsing, I want you to remember you didn't fail. You simply haven't been given the full blueprint yet. And that's what we're building, one layer at a time. Now that we've laid to rest the myth of willpower, let's take it even deeper. Here's section 2, addiction is not the problem. Because here's something radical that many people in recovery have never been told. And once you hear it, it changes everything. Addiction is not the problem. Addiction is the attempted solution to a much deeper problem. Let that sink in. The substance, the behavior, the compulsion, it's not the root. It's the bandage for a wound that was never allowed to fully heal. Addiction is a strategy for survival, a strategy for managing overwhelm, emptiness, pain, fear, boredom, rage, or loneliness. Addictions always originate in pain, whether felt openly or hidden in the unconscious. Dr. Gabor Mate. Most of us didn't wake up one day and say, you know, what would make my life better? Alchemical dependency. No, we were trying to soothe anxiety, escape depression, fill an internal void, manage unprocessed trauma, or feel something in the numbness. Whether it was alcohol, opioids, weed, benzos, Adderall, sugar, porn, gambling, shopping, or endless scrolling, we were trying to regulate our state the best way we knew how. And sometimes those substances worked, or at least for a while. They gave us relief. They made life bearable. They created moments of peace where none existed before. But the brain doesn't forget what works. And when a substance delivers that sense of safety or control, the brain locks it in like a survival code. Here's where neuroscience comes in. When you use a substance that triggers a big dopamine spike, your brain rewires itself to favor that path. And the more that path is traveled, the deeper it becomes. It's not a moral failure, it's neuroplasticity. Neurons that fire together wire together. Donald Hebb, neuropsychologist. And it's not just dopamine. Chronic stress, trauma, and emotional suppression damage our GABA system, which helps us calm down, serotonin system, which helps us feel okay and connected, endorphins, which helps soothe pain, glutamate, which regulates learning and memory. When these systems get dysregulated, whether from childhood trauma, poor nutrition, chronic stress, or environmental toxicity, the body seeks regulation wherever it can find it. And in a world full of artificial highs and quick escapes, the brain starts reaching for the easiest route to relief. Drugs are not the problem. Drugs are a response to the problem. Johann Hari, author of Chasing the Scream. Let's go even deeper. Addiction doesn't begin in the bottle or the pill. It begins in the nervous system. It begins when a child grows up without safety, when their needs aren't met, when their emotions are punished, neglected, or dismissed, when they learn, consciously or unconsciously, that their feelings are too much, or that love is conditional. That child grows into an adult who looks fine on the outside, but carries a nervous system that's always bracing for impact. And when they discover a substance that quiets the internal chaos, their brain says, finally, this is what we needed. This is why addiction can't be healed through punishment, willpower, or shame. You can take away the substance, but if the pain remains, if the nervous system stays dysregulated, if the original wound is still raw, then the craving will return. Not because you're bad, but because the body is still trying to complete a cycle that never got to finish. The opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it is connection. Johann Hari. And connection isn't just external, it's also internal. Connection to your body, to your breath, to your truth, to your emotions, to yourself. Capital S. The you beneath the wounding, beneath the roles, beneath the masks. So let me reframe it like this. Addiction isn't your identity. It's your nervous system asking for help. It's your inner child asking for love. It's your pain saying, please stop ignoring me. And what's incredible is this. If addiction is the adaptation, then recovery is your awakening. It's not about going back to who you were before the addiction. It's about becoming the person you were always meant to be. Before the pain, before the pattern, before the numbing became necessary. And that journey doesn't begin by fighting the addiction. It begins by understanding what it was trying to protect you from. Moving along, we reach section 3 on the hijacked brain. Now that we've seen addiction as a response, not a root, let's dive into one of the most misunderstood aspects of that response, the hijacked brain. Because addiction doesn't just feel powerful, it literally rewires the brain. It's not about weakness. It's not about lack of morals. It's neurobiology. Let's break this down. Every time you consume a substance, whether it's alcohol, opiates, stimulants, sugar, or even a compulsive behavior like gambling or scrolling, your brain receives a large surge of dopamine, the neurotransmitter responsible for reward, motivation, and reinforcement. And at first, that hit feels like a miracle. Your brain lights up, the fog lifts, you feel focused, connected, calm, energized, whatever the substance promises. But here's the catch. The brain is always trying to maintain homeostasis, or balance. So when dopamine levels spike artificially, the brain compensates by downregulating your natural production. In other words, your baseline for joy, focus, and drive begins to drop. The things that used to bring you pleasure, laughter, hugs, music, nature, creativity, don't light you up the same way anymore. Why? Because your brain now views those natural sources as too small to matter. It's waiting for the next hit. Addiction isn't about feeling good. It's about trying to feel normal. Dr. Anna Lemke, author of Dopamine Nation. But the more you chase the high, the more your brain defends against it. By reducing dopamine receptors, suppressing baseline production, hardwiring the association between the substance and safety. This is neuroadaptation, and it's not a flaw, it's a survival strategy. The brain is protecting you from overload. But the result? You end up dopamine deficient, burned out, unmotivated, anxious, foggy, and unable to feel pleasure from everyday life, aka anhedonia. And this doesn't just affect dopamine. Addiction also hijacks GABA, which regulates anxiety and helps you feel calm. Glutamate, which helps you learn, focus, and adapt. Serotonin, which governs mood, sleep, and social connection. Endorphins, your natural painkillers. Norepinephrine, which helps with attention and energy. All of these systems get thrown off balance, not just from substances, but also from stress, trauma, poor sleep, inflammation, nutrient depletion, and unresolved emotional pain. So here's the reality. You're not just dealing with cravings, you're dealing with a neurological rewiring of the reward system. And trying to positive think your way through it is like trying to meditate your way out of a broken leg. As Nicole LaPera says, the body reflects what the mind believes, but when the body is inflamed, depleted, or dysregulated, no amount of belief can override the biological storm. This is why relapse isn't a moral issue, it's a metabolic one. If your neurotransmitters are depleted, if your stress hormones are elevated, if your blood sugar is unstable and your circadian rhythm is wrecked, then your brain is literally operating in survival mode. You're not making empowered decisions, you're just trying to cope. Now imagine this. You're sitting in a support group, or in therapy, or with well-meaning friends, and they say, you just need to stay strong, but your brain is screaming for balance. Your body is starving for serotonin. Your nervous system is begging for relief, and you're being asked to resist the one thing that gave you a sense of control? That's not strength, that's torture. So what's the solution? You don't punish the hijacked brain, you restore it, you repair it, you nourish it, you rebalance it. Because when your brain begins to feel safe again, when dopamine flows naturally, when your circadian rhythm resets, when your gut starts producing serotonin, when your nervous system starts to trust that you're no longer in danger, that's when craving loses its power. Healing is not forcing the body into change. It's creating the conditions where change can happen naturally. Dr. Joe Dispenza. And that's what most recovery models miss. They try to address the behaviors without addressing the biology. They speak to the mind, but forget the machine that the mind runs on. But here's the good news. Your brain is not broken. It's plastic, meaning it can change, adapt, heal, and rewire. And with the right inputs, nutrients, sleep, movement, light, breath, connection, purpose, you don't have to fight your brain anymore. You can turn it into an ally, because recovery doesn't mean becoming someone else. It means restoring who you were before your brain got hijacked. And that restoration, it's not just possible, it's already beginning. Section 4 is on recovery systems that aren't designed to work. Let's now talk about something that's hard to say, but essential to heal. Most mainstream recovery systems were never designed to truly heal you. That's not a jab at therapy. It's not a dismissal of 12-step groups or treatment centers. There's value in all of it. There's wisdom, community, and structure. But for millions of people, maybe you included, those systems aren't enough. They give you a map, but not the terrain. They offer rules, but not regulation. They offer language, but not a whole body remapping of your nervous system, biology, and self-concept. And here's why. Most recovery systems were built in the 1930s and 40s, long before we understood trauma, neuroplasticity, biochemical repair, or even emotional repression. AA was created in 1935. Rehab models evolved from that basic spiritual psychological blueprint. But science has exploded since then. We know that trauma lives in the body, not just the mind. Neurotransmitters shape emotional capacity. Gut health influences mood, cravings, and clarity. Attachment wounds shape identity and relational patterns. Environment and community directly affect brain chemistry. And yet, you can go to rehab and never once be told to fix your sleep. You can go to therapy for years and never hear about magnesium, amino acids, or blood sugar regulation. You can do 90 meetings in 90 days and never talk about unresolved grief, inner child healing, or somatic trauma work. Imagine breaking your leg and being given only a journal, a prayer, and a support group. No cast, no crutches, no anti-inflammatory support. Just encouragement and affirmations. You might feel seen, you might feel supported, but you still can't walk. And that's the paradox of traditional recovery systems. They give you pieces, emotional support, spiritual guidance, behavioral insight, but not the biological scaffolding or holistic structure you need to sustain long-term transformation. As Ram Dass once said, you can't get out of a jail you don't know you're in. And too many recovery systems keep people trapped in cycles of guilt and relapse. Not because people aren't trying hard enough, but because the model wasn't built for wholeness. Let's look at what's missing. 1. Biochemical repair. No discussion of amino acids, targeted supplementation, inflammation, or hormonal imbalance. No support for restoring dopamine, GABA, serotonin, or nutrient-depleted systems. 2. Somatic trauma healing. No understanding of how trauma lives in the body, not just the mind. Trauma is a mind, body, spirit, multidimensional injury. No nervous system regulation tools like breathwork, vagus nerve toning, or trauma-informed movement. 3. Neurodiversity awareness. No support for ADHD, HSPs, highly sensitive persons, or dysregulated brain wiring. Everyone treated with the same cookie-cutter, one-size-fits-all model, regardless of neurotype. 4. Environmental alignment. No exploration of how your physical space, relationships, light exposure, or diet affect recovery. No re-engineering of the home or digital environment to support nervous system health. And 5. Purpose and identity integration. No attention given to your soul's calling. No guided path from survival to self-actualization. Instead, you're given a diagnosis, a treatment plan, a generic relapse prevention checklist, a suggestion to go to more meetings. I say that the system was built to contain symptoms, not to unleash potential. And this is not to blame anyone. Most clinicians are doing their best. Most therapists, counselors, and sponsors deeply care. But the paradigm they're working within, it's outdated. It's like using a paper map in a world that now runs on GPS. The new paradigm must integrate biology and belief, spirit and science, structure and softness, personalized protocols, and soul-based purpose. True healing requires more than stopping a behavior. It requires building a life that no longer needs that behavior to survive. Unknown. That's the shift we're here to create. That's what strategic recovery is about. Because when someone relapses in the old model, they're often told, you didn't work the program. But rarely does anyone ask, was the program designed for your nervous system, your trauma, your biology, your story? Recovery should not be one size fits all. It should be a sacred strategy, customized to your whole being. And if no one's ever given you permission to question the system, let this be your permission. You are not failing the program. The program may be failing you. But that's not the end of the story. It's the beginning of a new one. And it starts by creating a recovery system that is actually worthy of you. This next section you're really going to love. It's on trauma, identity, and the inner war. Now let's go deeper still. Deeper than behavior, deeper than cravings, deeper than brain chemistry. Let's talk about the part of the iceberg that's beneath the surface, your identity, and the invisible war that's happening within it. Because addiction isn't just a cycle of habits. It's a battle between different selves inside of you. On one side, there's the self that wants to heal. The one that says, I want to be free. I'm tired of this. I know I'm meant for more. And on the other side, there's the wounded part. The part that says, I just need relief. I can't handle this pain. I'm not safe without this escape. And so begins the inner war. It's not a war of good versus evil. It's not a war of willpower versus weakness. It's a war of survival versus truth. The survival self versus the authentic self. The survival self is the part of you that adapted brilliantly to your environment. Maybe you grew up with chaos or neglect or rejection. Maybe you learned that love was conditional, that emotions weren't safe, that your needs were too much, so you split. One part of you tried to become who the world wanted, the achiever, the people pleaser, the rebel, the perfectionist. Another part of you took the pain and buried it, numbed it, tried to outrun it. And all of this was intelligent. Addiction is not a choice. It's a response to unbearable distress. Dr. Gabor Mate. But over time, those survival strategies became prisons. You start living from masks. You forget who you really are. You don't trust your intuition. You silence your inner voice. You self-abandon to be accepted. And that's when addiction becomes more than a coping tool. It becomes an identity. Not because it's who you are, but because it's the only thing that consistently brought relief to the part of you that's never been allowed to speak. As trauma expert Dr. Peter Levine says, trauma is not what happens to us, but what we hold inside in the absence of an empathetic witness. And for many people in recovery, there has never been that empathetic witness. So they learn to witness themselves with wine, or opioids, or weed, or porn, or sugar, or isolation, or overworking. Whatever brought temporary coherence to their internal chaos. But those aren't solutions. They're symptoms of a deeper wound. The belief that I am not enough as I am. The belief that I must perform, hide, or numb in order to survive. And healing? Healing isn't about fixing those parts. It's about integrating them. About welcoming back every version of you that had to fragment in order to stay alive. Your cravings aren't just chemical. They're messages from your body, from your soul, from your inner child who's still waiting to be seen. Let's take this deeper with a metaphor. Imagine a beautiful house, your soul, with many rooms. But when you were young, someone told you certain rooms were bad. So you locked them, boarded them up, forgot they existed. Now as an adult, you live in just 2 or 3 of those rooms. But something feels missing. There's anxiety in the halls. There's a sadness you cannot name. There are echoes behind the walls. That's your unlived self calling you home. And an addiction was the flashlight that let you survive in the dark. But now, it's time to turn the lights on and open the doors again. The wound is the place where the light enters you, roomy. That inner war you feel isn't a sign of failure. It's a sign that you're awakening. You're no longer willing to live divided. You're ready to reconcile, to remember, to reintegrate, to reclaim every part of you that had to go silent just to keep peace. This is shadow work. This is trauma healing. This is identity rebirth. And it's not easy, but it's sacred. You are not addicted. Your nervous system is dysregulated. You are not broken. You are fragmented. And the pieces are still there, waiting to come back together. So let's stop pathologizing what were actually brilliant adaptations. Let's stop calling you resistant when you're actually protective. Let's stop calling you relapsed when you're really remembering. Because underneath the coping, beneath the cravings, beneath the patterns, there is a version of you that's still complete and whole and perfect, still wise, still powerful, still divine, and that version has never left. Recovery is about finding your way back to that self and making that version the one who leads. Now let's dig into section 6. What actually works? At this point, we've uncovered so much. You've seen that addiction isn't a moral failure, it's an adaptive response. That relapse isn't weakness, it's a message. That willpower isn't enough because you need to heal the whole system. That most recovery models weren't designed to fit your body, your brain, your soul. So the big question becomes, what actually works? What do we do with all this insight? Let's shift now from diagnosis to design. From what's wrong to what's next. From survival to strategy. Let me paint you a different roadmap. One that aligns with your biology, your trauma, your truth, and your transcendence. I call it the 5 pillars of strategic recovery. 1. Biochemical pillar. Heal the body that holds the pain. This is where it all starts. Because your brain isn't just a bundle of thoughts, it's an organ. And like any organ, it needs fuel, rest, and balance. Recovery becomes 10x harder when your blood sugar is crashing, sleep cycles are broken, hormones are imbalanced, gut is inflamed, nutrient levels are depleted. You cannot think clearly with a malnourished brain. Julia Ross, M.A., author of The Mood Cure. This is about rebuilding your biochemical foundation. That means magnesium for calm, amino acids for neurotransmitters, omega-3s for brain structure, B vitamins for energy and mood, hydration, sunlight, movement, breath. You restore dopamine naturally. You rebuild serotonin from the inside out. You calm the nervous system, not by force, but by feeding it. This is how the brain becomes your ally again. 2. Emotional healing. Feel what you couldn't feel back then and survive it. Most addiction is a way of avoiding pain that once felt unbearable. It's not about weakness, it's about frozen grief, fear, rage, and shame that never had permission to move. So the second pillar is all about processing the pain you used to numb. That includes inner child work, shadow work, guided self-compassion, somatic trauma release, journaling, breath work, and grief rituals. What we don't transform, we transmit. Richard Rohr. The goal here isn't to wallow in pain, it's to alchemize it, to feel the emotion fully, in a safe, supported way, and let it move through you instead of getting stuck inside you. Emotions are energy in motion, and when you let them complete their cycle, they stop running your life from the shadows. This is where shame dissolves, where self-forgiveness begins, where the war inside your heart starts to make peace. Number 3, spiritual awakening. Connect to something bigger than your patterns. You are more than your pain, more than your past, more than your survival strategies. You are a soul on a journey. And that part of you, it doesn't need to be recovered. It's already whole. It's been watching and waiting, gently guiding you home. But it's the one that opens the door to great. This is the part of recovery that most systems miss, but it's the one that opens the door to grace. Spiritual awakening doesn't have to mean religion. It simply means awakening to truth, to meaning, to the knowing that you are never alone, that you are guided, that your life has a purpose, and that your suffering is not wasted, it is a seed. Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. Rumi. This pillar includes meditation and prayer, nature connection, dream work and synchronicities, listening to your intuition, asking deeper questions like, what am I really here to embody? What is my soul asking of me now? This is what turns recovery into a sacred rebirth. 4. Social realignment. Your healing needs a village, not just a journal. You cannot recover in isolation. So many people in addiction feel alone, even in a crowded room. That's because trauma and shame disconnect us from others and from ourselves. And yet, healing is relational. This pillar is about letting go of toxic influences, rebuilding your relational boundaries, finding your aligned community, practicing vulnerability and safe spaces, being seen, not just fixed. The cure for addiction is not sobriety, it's connection. Johann Hari. This is where nervous system co-regulation happens, when you start to trust again, when you stop hiding your truth just to be accepted. You don't need a crowd, you just need a few safe souls who get it, even this podcast. 5. Lifestyle mastery. Build a life that supports your freedom, not sabotages it. Recovery isn't just what you stop doing. It's about the life you start building in its place. This pillar is about creating daily rhythms that soothe your nervous system, systems and routines that support focus and flow, environments that inspire you, sleep, movement, creativity, and simplicity. This is where relapse prevention becomes irrelevant, because you're no longer fighting cravings. You're too busy living a life you actually want. Discipline is choosing what you want now and what you want most. Abraham Lincoln. But here's the thing, it's not about perfection. It's about alignment. Living in a way that supports the real you, not the performative you. The wise you, the integrated you. You build habits from love, not fear, for wholeness, not shame. That's when recovery stops being something you work on and starts being the natural expression of the person you've become. And when you combine all 5 pillars, biochemical, emotional, spiritual, social, and lifestyle, you're no longer trying to stay sober. You're building a life so deeply connected to who you really are that addiction simply has no place to land. Because the person who once needed the escape, they're no longer in charge. The real you is. And that's the path we're walking together. Last section, my friend. Number 7, why you're already healing. So after all of this, the myths we've untangled, the biology we've unpacked, the trauma we've honored, the blueprint we've revealed, let me tell you something that may surprise you. You're already healing. Yes, right now. Even if you feel messy, even if you still struggle, even if part of you is skeptical, even if you just relapsed yesterday. Healing doesn't start when the symptoms stop. It starts the moment you wake up to something deeper. The moment you begin asking questions like, what's really going on beneath the surface? What am I trying to soothe or silence? What if I'm not broken, just misaligned? What would it mean to truly come home to myself? That's healing. Awareness is healing. Curiosity is healing. Self-compassion is healing. Listening to this podcast is healing. Because recovery doesn't begin with a dramatic event. It often begins with a whisper, a soft inner voice that says, there's more than this. There has to be a better way, and I'm ready to find it. If you're still here with me, you've already crossed a threshold. That version of you that thought healing was impossible, that thought relapse meant failure, that feared you were too far gone, that version is fading, and your new self is beginning to rise. This isn't spiritual bypassing, This isn't toxic positivity. This is the deeper truth, the one buried beneath the shame and noise of the world. You were never broken. You were responding to pain with the tools you had. And now you're ready for new tools, new maps, new mentors, new strategies, a new self. You are in the middle of a recalibration. And it might not feel linear. It might not feel clean, but it is working. Transformation doesn't ask that you stop being you. It asks that you stop living the version of you that was created in survival, unknown. You are being initiated into the next chapter of your life, one built on truth, not trauma, alignment, not avoidance, soul, not survival. And here's what I want to leave you with. You don't have to be ready. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have it all figured out. All you have to do is keep listening. Keep asking. Keep loving the parts of you that still flinch. Keep creating a space where healing feels safe, not forced. If you're in a good spot to do this, you could follow this guided closing affirmation with me. You could put your right hand on your heart and say, I am not behind. I am becoming. I am not a project to fix. I am a soul remembering itself. I honor the journey I've worked. I forgive the choices I made in survival. I open to a future led by love, not fear. I am healing right now in ways I can't even see. And I am worthy of a life that feels like freedom, not a fight. So, if you've been wondering, can I really do this? Am I really healing? Is change really possible for someone like me? Here's your answer. Yes. Yes, 1,000 times yes. You're already doing it. The fact that you're still listening, still showing up, means something inside of you already knows that you're not meant to stay stuck. You're meant to rise. You're not here to just survive. You're here to alchemize, to expand, to lead, to embody the truth that addiction once tried to cover. And I want you to know, you don't have to walk this path alone. We're building a new paradigm together. And this is just the beginning.